Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Mend Your Menopause Mayhem. And we are going to go through what's happening with your menopause and how bioidentical hormones might be of use for you. So I'd like to start out by just reminding you that menopause is not a disease. This is a natural process that will happen to all women in their lifetime. That said, though, for some people, that bump in a road can feel like a mountain, and the symptoms can be quite severe. So we're going to talk today about how to get your sleep, your sex, and your sanity back. Sounds good, hey? All right, well, let's go. I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly. There's a ton of information I want to share with you, and I'd really like to keep this to the half an hour or less if humanly possible. So stick around to the end. That's where I'll let you know how you can work with me one-on-one and get hold of the hormones if that's what you would like. And you can get the recording so that if you need to go back and re-listen to some of the information, that will happen for you. So let's start with a question to you. How have hormones affected your life? Poor Millie here. She didn't make it through that hot flash. So you can type comments into the top right there and just let me know what your experience has been through all of this and what symptoms are worse for you, and we can go from there. Yeah, like Millie being absolutely so freaking hot, red and sweaty, and it's embarrassing, especially if you're in a meeting with a whole bunch of men. That can, yeah, embarrassing. That's something that's talked about often, no doubt. Yeah, the sleep. Yeah, we're definitely going to dig into that way more as we get going, that's for sure. The bladder infections. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. That is something that we will get to when we get to the later on. So I would absolutely love to hear your experience. And how do you want it to be? Because it really doesn't need to be like that. And that's what we're going to get to. Yes, it's normal and everything else, but it does not need to feel like this. So that's me. My name's Dr. Carrie Fullerton. I'm a naturopathic doctor at Rooted Naturopathic Clinic in Barrie, Ontario. And I've been practicing since 2004. Women's health has been a big focus of my practice right from the beginning. And with menopausal women and perimenopausal women, I've been using herbal remedies and exercise, diet, that kind of thing, with varying degrees of success. For some women, though, it's just not enough. They need hormones. And until now, I've had to send them to their MD for a prescription. And that has been met with some resistance on both parties. Patients don't necessarily want to use synthetic hormones. They know that there's something in particular they're after, and their doctors aren't familiar with them and are reluctant to prescribe. So patients have had to make some hard choices. Do I use the synthetic medications, or do I suffer and hope that Carrie finds a new herbal remedy? And it's very exciting that now, under our new regulations, naturopaths have been granted prescribing rights, and bioidentical hormones is on the list. So it's very, very exciting to share this with you. So this is how most people are experiencing life in all of this, the frustration. Um, they have lots of worries and concerns about their hormones. They go to Dr. Google, learns all kinds of cool stuff. Dr. Oz and Oprah are always willing to offer some really great info. And then they go to the doctor, and it's not so much. And we want to take you from that frustration to the freedom. And this is about the freedom to have access to all the treatment options so that you can choose and you can be empowered and engaged in your health. And that's what we all really want, isn't it? To get back to yourself. How cool would that be? And our mission here at Rooted, we are here to help women understand their bodies. And we work with women of all ages. And more perimenopausal women are coming in experiencing irregular periods, PMS like they've never had, anxiety, insomnia, and intolerable heat. The fatigue and the weight gain is pretty high on the list too. And we feel that it's time for women to take their lives back. And we want hormonal conditions to be treated with hormones instead of antidepressants and sleeping pills. What's your experience so far with doctors and with your journey? Again, you can just type into the comment boxes on your right there. And Yeah, not being heard by your doctor, maybe not being taken as seriously. Yeah, not all doctors are on board. A lot of them are, though. Some of them are really fantastic. Nurse practitioners are more and more available, and they seem to be much more willing to work with, which is super fantastic. Yeah, too much information out there, right? Yeah. What do you do? What are you supposed to take? How much? When? All that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so this is the frustration to freedom model. So out of control is the first step. You don't know what the heck is happening to you. You've got all these weird symptoms. Then you start researching and you get overwhelmed. Then you get absolutely uncertain. You have no idea what to do. And then hopefully you get to the other side of it where you get some encouragement and you start to feel like you're engaged in the process and certainly empowered to make the choices that you'd like. And that on your right there is just the contentment scale of how women can feel. So we want to take you to the self, and that means getting you to sleep. It also means getting you to enjoy sex again. And when you get the two of those together, that's satisfaction, ladies. And then, of course, there's your sanity, which is pretty vital to life. And that, when you get your sex life back and you get your sanity, you and your partner can be synchronized. You guys can reconnect. And when you're sleeping well and you have your sanity back, your life will be smooth, or at least much more smooth than it is now. Oops. So, sleep. Whether your sleep is disrupted by anxiety or hot flashes, it needs to be addressed for everything to work better. Your food cravings, your mood, your energy, your concentration, your weight are all tied into your sleep. And if you're getting less than 7 hours, you are lining yourself up brilliantly for the weight gain through the insulin resistance. Leptin reduction. Leptin is that fun hormone that tells us we're full. How many of you have noticed that when you're exhausted that you are really hungry? And we do tend to crave the carbs during that time because that's the fastest fuel source. You also, with less than 7 hours of sleep, are going to end up with elevated cortisol. That's that stress hormone. And that creates inflammation and all kinds of other imbalances. Whereas if we can get you over 7.5 hours sleep, but less than 9, you're going to see better performance at work, your memory recall, and all the other goodies. I couldn't resist this one. Wouldn't it be so great if you just were completely unaware of your night sweats? And kind of like his snoring, right? Anyways, this is probably more like what you're experiencing. So here's a quick lesson on hormones and what's going on and why all of this is happening to you. So in your 20s and early 30s, your estrogen and progesterone, they run fairly well hand in hand together. Estrogen is a very stimulating hormone. Progesterone is a very relaxing hormone. As they start to drop, you will notice that, excuse me, estrogen drops at a much slower rate than progesterone. So that leaves us in a more excited state, which means anxiety, sleeplessness, hot flashes, all those good, lovely things that you're all suffering with. And so it's not a lack of estrogen or lack of progesterone by themselves. It's the imbalance of the two. So this is where you get that estrogen dominance, and I'm sure you have all read and heard about. So one of the ways to fix this, of course, is to replace some of the progesterone that you're no longer producing. And by balancing the progesterone, then the estrogen gets abated and it gets soothed and you get to have a smoother roll. And then once menopause really kicks in and you get further along the way, the really major decline in estrogen starts to create its own issues, but the fluctuations in the heat and all that stuff start to settle down. So the good news is this will not last forever. The bad news is we don't really know how long it could last for, and that's where the treatment comes in and where it can help you get through it. Progesterone replacement therapy is one option. There's lots of other things, the herbs, cognitive behavioral therapy programs, phytoestrogens. There's lots and lots of choices to help you get through this and get your sleep back on track. Scale of 1 to 10, where's your sleep right now? Yeah. Big changes. Oh, good. Some of you are sleeping. Yeah, that's the other thing, right? You're not all going to have the same symptoms. Sex. This one I find people just don't talk about. It's a huge issue. and no one is talking about it. They don't talk to their doctors unless their doctors explicitly ask. It's something that people just don't bring up. And often doctors don't bring it up. It can be a time crunch. It can definitely open up a can of worms. This question, how is your sex life, has brought a lot of tears in the office because it is a tricky area. It's a big area of contention between partners. Lots of fights, lots of confusion. Your partner has no idea why you're not interested anymore. You're going to bed at different times. You're completely avoiding it. And you're embarrassed and you don't know what's going on. And because people aren't talking about it, you have no idea that this is a biological thing happening in your body and that it's your hormones. And that is something that can be addressed. This is hands down the biggest issue. The dryness that happens is that estrogen declines can be excruciating. I had one woman who, every time she sat down on the toilet, she cracked. She was in agony, and she was absolutely petrified of hormones. And when it gets to that extent, hormones are really the only thing that's going to fix it. There aren't very many natural solutions once it gets that bad. So we were luckily working with a wonderful doctor who was able to calm her concerns and get her going. So the other thing that happens with this vaginal atrophy, is the actual name for it, is lots of urinary tract infections. So those bladder infections that show up all the time. And people end up on lots of antibiotics, often just with a standing prescription as a result of this dryness and atrophy. And so yeah, sex is painful, and no one wants to no one wants to do this when it's that sore. There are other reasons for the sexual decline. Sometimes it's body image. The shape of your body can change, and that can be tricky. The lower libido is a big one. Sometimes it's just lack of interest entirely. But like I say, most of this is really due to the estrogen levels. And yeah, it's something that needs to be fixed. So, scale of 1 to 10, where's your sex life right now? And are there other reasons that I haven't covered as to why you're not particularly keen on it right now? Yeah, being all sweaty, not so great. You're not feeling too sexy, that's for sure. Yeah, that body image. It's a tough one. Yeah. Yeah, lack of sleep. You would much prefer to sleep. I get it. But it can be different, right? We can transform your relationship again, or even just your relationship with yourself, and not have to deal with so many infections and not be in so much pain. Again, different options that are non-hormonal. So there's lubrications. There's a product called Replens, which some women have been doing very well with. Probiotics, they can be done vaginally as suppositories, also orally. So lots of non-hormonal options, like I said, earlier in the process, but once you get to that desert dry, hormones are really the way to go. But let's get on to number 3, your sanity. How many of you missed this? This is really huge. Women feel like they are absolutely going insane and they have no idea why and they don't know how to stop it. They are just beside themselves. They have very little patience and always seem to be on their last nerve. They're not parenting the way they'd like to. They are certainly not being the partner that they had planned on being. They are frustrated, irritable, and this creates a huge amount of stress, which only makes things worse, right? Does this look familiar? Being in a fog. This one's really tricky. Losing keys, forgetting to pick stuff up. You used to be able to go to the store for 3 things and not need a list, and now, God help you if you don't write them down. Missing appointments, or it might be more subtle. You maybe are just losing words, or maybe it's a name or a phone number. It can be downright maddening. You're calling someone, and by the time it stops ringing, you can't remember who it is you're calling, and you just hope you remember the voice on the other side. And what we're hoping to take you to is we'd like you to find some ease in your life. Move through this with greater ease. It's a big progesterone issue because estrogen is so stimulating. Your body is just going full tilt all the time and disrupting sleep and all those things. So we need to counterbalance all that estrogen with the progesterone. All of this is for nothing without a solid foundation, though. And that means even hormones cannot replace a good diet. We are big fans of the Mediterranean diet here at Rooted Naturopathic Clinic. It's one of the few diets, probably the only diet that's been properly studied, and properly is even a difficult word to say. But it doesn't exclude any food groups, which we're a big, big fan of. We like people to enjoy their food. And it just gives some balance to things, keeps blood sugars balanced. It's plant-based, it's whole food, and yeah, you're going to want to keep an eye out for your trigger foods, though. Often alcohol and very spicy things are a problem for many women, or the stimulants like coffee and sugar. And again, because estrogen is so stimulating, when you just keep poking the bear, it's going to get bigger, right? Exercise. You will notice that this does not say weight loss. Exercise without weight loss is still a very, very important thing in your life. Probably the single greatest thing that you can do. Your cardiovascular health and your bone health are absolutely solidly built on a good exercise program. So you want to plan to exercise every day, a couple days, make sure it's weights, resistance training, strength building for your bones. If you plan to do it 7 days a week and you miss 2 or 3, you've still done it most days and you are ahead of the game. So that's fantastic. If you only plan to do it 2 or 3 times a week and you miss a couple, then a whole week goes by without exercise. But that's really, really important. Okay, what makes a bioidentical hormone bioidentical and not synthetic? So on the left is a progesterone molecule, and on your right is a synthetic one. And you can see that the synthetic one has a few extra groups on it, some carbon molecules, a couple extra oxygen molecules, and away you go. So is it a big deal? Maybe, maybe not. It's kind of hard to tell. Bioidentical hormones, though, are molecularly the same to human progesterone, which just simply means that they would look like the one on the left, which means your body will incorporate it with greater ease and less side effects. Premarin was developed in the 1950s, and they were taking estrogen from pregnant horses. And being from an animal is not a problem. It's really not a big deal. It's just that there's over 150 different estrogen molecules in Premarin, and one of those happens to be estrone, or there's a couple of them, and that's the one that's more cancer allowing than the other two estrogens. And only 3 of those 150 estrogen molecules are bioidentical to humans. So it's really no wonder that there's quite a few side effects and issues that come along with it. What was learned, though, is that when you give estrogen without opposing progesterone, you end up with cancers and cardiovascular risks. So whether we're using bioidentical or not, estrogen by itself, never a good idea. Then they developed the progesterone to counteract the estrogen, which was good because it helped reduce some of the risks. The challenge is Provera. It's a very strong. It's a strong drug. It has a long half-life, which just simply means we have a very difficult time getting it out of our bodies. It sticks around a lot longer than natural progesterone would, and as such, it ends up with a higher side effect profile. They do now have vegetable sourced ones, so they get it from soy and from yam. Great, it's closer. It's still not bioidentical, but it's a little bit better than these. One of the big questions for the bioidenticals is there any research? The short answer is yes. The long answer is that we need more. We need bigger studies. We need more comparative studies. When the Women's Health Initiative canceled their study, it was because of the increased cardiovascular events and the increased cancers. And it's really too bad because it was such a big group of women and it was such a long run study, and it would have been really great if they'd had an arm of women who were taking bioidenticals, because wouldn't it have been great to have been able to compare the difference between the two? And the bioidenticals have been around a long, long time. They didn't show up as a result of that study. They've been studied since the 70s, and some of them have been pretty impressive. One very noteworthy study, and this is just about the safety because people wonder, we'll get into it a little bit more, but they showed that the bioidentical progesterone promotes blood flow, which is the complete opposite of what happens with the synthetic, which restricts. It's vasoconstrictive. So the cardiovascular question is still up for discussion as to whether or not the bioidenticals are different in that way. And it's hotly debated, and people seem to be on one side of the fence or the other. Needless to say, though, proper prescribing is key. Are they safe? They sure are. But they're hormones and they need to be treated as such regardless. You need to use a reliable pharmacy, making sure you're using the same pharmacy time and again so that you're not getting different variations each time. One of the big pluses is that we can manipulate the dose more easily with the bioidenticals, as they do tend to come in a transdermal cream. So you can't do that with the oral synthetic ones. The dose is the dose, and that's about it. And you either double it or you half it, but you can't play with it. And being able to adjust the dose and be much more specific to the woman in front of you is a great advantage of the bioidenticals. And like I said before, unopposed estrogen, bad idea. So we need to make sure that we are using the smallest amount of estrogen to alleviate symptoms, and that we are always giving the progesterone along with it. I'm conservative by nature, even with herbs and supplements. My view is that you use medications, herbs, and supplements so that your diet and lifestyle changes are made with greater ease. And then eventually you will come off of them and your diet and lifestyle should hold you. That's always the plan here. Okay, so what's next? Before we can prescribe a hormone, we have to know where you are. And then the next big debate is, do you use blood or do you use saliva? The saliva supporters claim that it measures the free bioavailable hormones instead of the bound ones found in the blood. Again, this is still being debated. The people who are not a big fan of it say that it's a way that pharmacists and naturopaths and all of us over the years have found a way to bypass medical doctors. I happen to be a blood girl. It's probably just because some of my mentors are not big supporters of the saliva hormones. We do provide it for patients who would like it, and that is always an option. And we certainly know how to read them. I like blood. And part of that is because it's translatable with others. The other thing is that when I test people's blood, especially for hormones, I'm going to do a full thyroid panel. I'm going to do your vitamin D, your vitamin B. I'm going to check your iron. I'm going to check all the other things that could mimic some of the estrogen dominant symptoms. It would be truly unfortunate if we started giving all these women progesterone cream and found out really it was their thyroid that was screwing everything up, or that they were just really iron deficient, or vitamin D deficiency is a huge thing we see often and can help moods dramatically. So that's one of the bonuses to blood, is that in one shot we can do a whack load of other things. And that way we get a full and complete picture of what's happening and can make the treatment plan about you instead of a protocol that comes out of a book that you do with everybody. And that's a huge advantage for me and for you, obviously. Blood sugars is another one that we will make sure that we test. So what happens is you do all the testing before the assessment, and then you come in for the assessment, and we talk about all your symptoms, we look at your blood work, and then we make the appropriate treatment choices from there. And that will definitely include diet and lifestyle shifts, and it would include possibly hormones if that's something that we decide is right for you. And certainly there are all the other wonderful things that we do here, which is the herbs, the supplements, the vitamins, any of the other bits that might add to things. It does take about 4 to 6 weeks for the effects to fully kick in. So sometimes it is nice to have some other options to get you through the transition time and get you to the other side. And this, we hope, gives you the confidence to know that you are in charge and that you can change things as you go. And you follow the plan that feels right for you right now. You work with the people that make sense to you right now. And if that needs to change, then you change it. And that you have a supportive team that are going to help you work through those, instead of people who are telling you that it's not right and that you need to do different things. So it's about finding that, being engaged and empowered. I always like to find out at the end of the webinar why people came and if they got what they were looking for. Make sure that there isn't any lingering questions that need to be addressed before we sign off here. And you can just type them into your comment box there. Yeah, I mean, you're here because you have menopausal symptoms and you're not satisfied with how they're being addressed. Awesome. And that's the plan of this, is that we're going to be able to give you some other choices. Absolutely. So we can get your sleep, your sex, and your sanity back. Yeah, you don't need to live without them. Not. Let's reclaim your life, reclaim your health, and put you back in the driver's seat. So we not only offer but encourage free 15-minute consultations. I see that some of you are my patients already, and this extends to you also. If you would like to come in and just talk about bioidentical hormones and whether or not that could be a good fit for you, please go ahead and book one. I'm very happy to chat with you one-on-one and get your questions answered. So you can do that by calling the office. Karen or Lori can book that for you, or we still have our online booking, so you can go to rootedinhealth.ca and click on the free, I think it's called a free meet the doctor, or it could be just a free 15-minute consultation, but we're very happy to provide that. And like I said, we encourage that. And then we can talk more specifically about the costs, but you're looking at a couple $100 worth of labs to do. The saliva tests are more about $400, and then the fees. So if you're a new patient, the fees are on our website, and if you're an existing patient, you probably know what those are already. And then currently, you can take the prescription to a compounding pharmacy and get them to do it up there. At this time, we're not carrying them. We're not in this to make money off of the bioidentical hormones. We're in it to offer our assistance to you. So I hope that you enjoyed the show, and I look forward to chatting with you more individually on how I can help. All right, take care, guys. Have a great night.